Good morning, Paradise Valley. Welcome to Coffee with a Cop. It's August 4th, and we are in our last remote Coffee with a Cop. Next month, we're going to meet in person, hopefully, just depending on what's going on with the virus numbers and that kind of stuff. So stay tuned to our social media sites for more information on that. Today we have a return presenter. Carly Baez has presented for us before, and she's a great speaker and has some great topics. So without further ado, I'm gonna give you a little introduction here and then have her start her presentation. According to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, every second of every day, an older adult, 65 years or older, suffers a fall in the United States, making falls the leading cause of injury and death in this age group. 1 out of 4 adults will fall each year in the United States, making falls a public health concern, particularly among the aging population. Today, we're going to learn about some risks and ways to help prevent these hazards at your home. Carly is the safety manager at Ketchell. Thanks for being with us, Carly, and feel free to start when you're ready.
Thank you very much. Thanks again for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. So today we're going to go over slips, trips, and falls, understanding the risk and eliminating the hazards at home. Just a quick introduction about me. Again, as Chief Wingard said, my name is Carly Baez. I am a safety manager for Ketchell. I actually began my journey in a consultant role and really fell in love with the construction industry, and I'm very active in my community. I am a past president for the Arizona chapter American Society of Safety Professionals, and I'm now at the regional level as Awards and Honors Chair. I've spoken at high schools and community events such as the annual Arizona Distracted Driving Summit, also alongside Chief Wingard here on one of the panels. And I'm also a coalition partner and co-facilitator of that event. And I've also spoken at conferences on changing culture and reshaping behavior and perception when it comes to safety. And here at Ketchell, our safety department combines our passion for occupational health and safety as well as the safety within and for our communities. So really excited to be here. So let's jump right into some statistics. An average person, I'm sure that if many of you wear a Fitbit or you wear an Apple Watch, you'll see how many steps you take a day. And the average person takes about 8,000 steps per day. Debris on the floor happens to be the leading cause of what makes floors slippery. So 24% of slips, trips, and falls are due to improper footwear, which is, for us living in Arizona, flip flops seem to be the main go-to a shoe for us, but it turns out that's not actually the safest one for us. Falls are the leading cause of emergency room visits, and more than 20,000 people die in the US each year. That happens to be 1 in every 158 people. And according to the CDC, 1 in 4 adults over the age of 65 will fall. Every 20 minutes, an older adult dies from a fall and many more are injured. And throughout the remainder of this presentation, I'm going to cover the most common hazards when working around the home and what you can do to work safer, looking at what we see and what we don't see. I'm also going to give you a little bit of a crash course in hazard identification, and then we're going to look at applying it to identifying hazards in the home and what you can do to eliminate them. And finally, we're going to go over more tips and resources that are available to you. So projects around the home pose a potential risk of you can fall off a step ladder or a ladder. You can slip on debris that's left on the ground from whatever task, even if it's just getting something out of a cabinet and you're standing on a step stool and you happen to step down and there's debris on the kitchen floor. Improper lifting methods. How many of you are, I'm not going to wait for this person, I'm just going to lift it all on my own? And how many times have you heard someone say, I told you were going to hurt yourself? Tripping over power cords and tools, leaving power tools and cords for someone else to trip over. And really, saving money is not always worth it. Your health and safety is worth it. Professionals are available to help you get the job done, especially when it could potentially be a job that could injure you, or it's really just too much to tackle on your own. When it comes to home projects, keep the work area clear of any hazards and be mindful of those who could be in your work area. Clean up spills immediately so that way you don't slip and in a mess that you created because of your work. Clean and pick up as you go. Make sure that you read all instructions and safety precautions on your tools and power tools, and never wear loose fitting clothing as it can get caught in equipment or when up on a ladder. Speaking of which, I myself had gotten caught up on a ladder with a safety vest that was way too big. So it can be very scary. So definitely make sure that you're not wearing loose clothing if you're ever up on a step stool or a ladder. It's really easy to get caught up. And speaking of ladders, there are many incidents in the home where people fall off ladders and they severely injure themselves. So it's really important that as you work around the home, that you understand how to inspect one before you use it, that you learn to identify the potential hazards that could be around your work area. Work on level ground. Don't put your ladder in rocks or river rock. Make sure that you're on level ground. And if you need assistance because you can't get the ladder on level ground, that's when you can call professionals. Straight and extension ladders should be securely tied to an upper support to prevent it from falling. And a good rule of thumb, and I'm going to repeat this again later, is to use a spotter or make sure you're not home alone. So speaking of falls from a ladder, I had a friend whose husband works on ladders or at height every single day. And he was at home working up on a ladder and he fell off and he shattered his ankle. As he went through many surgeries, he was not healing. His plates and his screws kept coming infected. And he eventually just opted to have that ankle amputated because he could not do anything to support his family. And this was over a year that he dealt with this. So falls may seem like no big deal, but even if you're used to being up on a ladder and you're at home, anything can happen. So number one, make sure you're not alone. And number two, make sure that you're wearing the proper clothing, make sure that your ladder's set up appropriately, and make sure that you move cautiously and carefully. Never overreach, overextend yourself. You want to move the ladder. Remember Clark Griswold in Christmas Vacation where he's putting up the Christmas lights and he's leaning over and he winds up stapling his sleeve to the fascia on the roof, and then he winds up falling and then he catches himself on a tree and it's just a big old mess. That kind of stuff actually does happen, that people overreach and they wind up falling. You want to maintain 3 points of contact, such as two hands or 2 feet in one hand, and that way you can work with the other hand. You want to wear slip-resistant shoes. Do not do these tasks in flip-flops. Make sure that you do not stand above the 3rd rung from the top, and always make sure that you have someone supporting the bottom, and make sure that you never use damaged or old equipment. And a straight or extension ladder should be 1 foot away from the surface it rests on for every 4 feet of height, and ensure that it extends at least 3 feet over the top of the edge of the roof, which is 3 rungs. So as you drive around your neighborhood, and I do this all the time, it makes me crazy. How many times especially around the holidays, how many times do you see ladders up against houses and they don't even clear the roof? And you see someone up on the roof. You know how difficult it is to descend a ladder from the roof when the ladder isn't even above the roof line? Not only is it very difficult, it's also very unsafe. So quick question, is this correct? And because we're all virtual and not together, I'm just gonna answer this for you. No, it's not. You should never stand higher than the 3rd step from the top when using a ladder to access a roof, and a ladder should be at least 3 feet or 3 rungs above the roof line. So now we're gonna get into a little bit of hazard identification. So my general safety question is, do you happen to notice the wet floor signs in public areas? Have you ever walked through, well, of course, we've all walked through a grocery store, maybe not lately, but walk through a grocery store and you happen to see wet floor signs, but do you see people ignoring them? Do you see people on their phone or they're talking to people and don't even realize that it's a wet floor? How many people have you seen slip near a wet floor sign? So this is where we're going to look at what we see and what we don't see, whether it's in public or even in our home. This right here is an item that screams to be noticed. But what about identifying items that we see every single day in our own home? How many times has someone been in our home and asked us about something that was there and we said, oh my gosh, I completely forgot that was there. Or how did I miss that? We do that because we're surrounded by these things every single day. And so they may not seem like It just seems like the normal part of the space. It may not scream to us that it's something that we need to deal with or that we need to identify as a potential hazard. So this is where, this is kind of my crash course on identifying the hazards associated with each item. So we have all, I'm assuming, been in a restaurant with a bunch of people. Maybe we've had dinner with a bunch of friends or family and we're all at the same table and we're in a crowded environment like this. Identifying the hazards is about what if. What if this happens? If we're looking at the picture, what could potentially happen? So we have to anticipate human behavior. We have to anticipate things that are going to impact human behavior and certain situations and the people and the property around them. So there's a lot to this, but I'm going to make it easy for you to identify hazards because we're going to use this example because it's something that I think is very familiar for us. So the first thing that we need to do when dinner has ended is we're going to get up from the table. We're going to get out of our chair. So what are the potential hazards of getting out of that chair? The first step of getting out of the chair is so that you can leave the restaurant, right? So that's the first step, getting out of the chair. How many hazards could there possibly be from getting out of a chair? So think about when you are sitting at a table, and I'm going to unshare this real quick, and then I'm going to come back up. Can you guys see me okay?
Yeah, we can see you.
Okay, good. So let's just say, for example, this is a dining room table, and you're with a whole bunch of people, you're in a crowded restaurant, and you're sitting at the table, and I've asked this question of other people as well. So you're sitting down, you're about to say goodbye to all these people that are here in front of you. What do you do? How do you get out of the chair? And many people will just stand up. Okay. Do you really just stand up? Do you really sit eating way back with your food and your plate over here? Or are you under the table? So the first step of getting out of the table or away from the table is to scoot back and stand up, correct? Then you also need to, at the same time, step around the chair. Well, what's here at the bottom of the chair? The leg. How many times have you gotten caught on the leg? And I'm going to go ahead and reshare this again. And just confirming that you can see this, okay?
Yep, we got it again.
You got it, perfect. Okay. So, okay. So stand up and get out of the chair. The potential hazards. Of course, we know we're scooting back. What happens when we scoot back? Have you ever scoot back into somebody else that was walking behind you that you didn't know was there? Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. I didn't see you. Or if you're in a chair and on carpet and it doesn't roll and it's one of those that gets stuck in the threads of the carpet and you got to pick the chair up and scoot it back and then put it back down. How many times have you landed on somebody's toes? That hurts, doesn't it? What about when you scoot back and there's a waitress behind you and they have a tray full of food or hot soup? What if you were to bump that person and they were to spill their food on somebody else? What if, you can see in the picture, there's all these jackets on the outside of the chair. What if one of those jackets happened to be long and you stepped on it and you slipped on it? How many times have you done that? So if we were to identify 5 hazards of just getting out of the chair, hitting somebody else, potentially hitting somebody else that could hit someone else and pour very hot liquid on them, or food, or even just dishes, causing a potential injury. Also in that image, there's a game on TV. We talked about distracted driving the last time I saw you guys. What about distracted walking? Someone's not paying attention. Look at how narrow those aisleways are. Look at how much stuff is on those tables. Just walking by them and not paying attention, you could easily knock things over. So there's a bunch of hazards that are associated with just getting out of the chair, and you haven't even pushed a chair under the table yet. So if we look at steps 2, 3, and 4, it's going to be, or even 5, 6, and 7, but we're just going to stop at 4. It's stepping over to the first person that you're going to say goodbye to. What are the potential hazards of that? Depending on where they're sitting, and if you look at the picture in the restaurant, there's a lot of different options. You could be sitting against the glass wall where there's another door that people could swing out to open up and could potentially hit you because you're in the way of that door. There are other obstacles of people that are trying to get by you as you're trying to say goodbye to somebody. How many times have you been trying to say goodbye to somebody at the table because you don't want to miss it? You know, we definitely could go outside and say goodbye to people, but what if we really don't want to miss the opportunity to tell them how much that this meeting meant to us? And then there's people that are squeezing by us and they're knocking a whole bunch of stuff over at the same time. So these are all hazards associated with that task, and we haven't even reached the door yet. We haven't even left the restaurant yet. And then walking to the front door of the exit. What's the hazards there? Well, a lot of the hazards that we already talked about still apply. You still have jackets on the floor. Anybody have somebody that carries a handbag that has an enormous strap on it that seems to snake its way around the chairs and happens to just attack your foot every single time and almost try to kill you as you walk out, as you try to get out of your seat, because it just keeps wrapping around your foot. Other people not paying attention because they're watching the game. You're trying to maneuver around that. Maybe your cell phone rings and you look at it because you're trying to get to your next appointment. Meanwhile, there's a waitress coming your way with a tray of hot food or even empty dishes. These are all hazards that we have to think about. So if we start looking at hazards in the home, and I hope that example was useful for you. If we start looking at hazards in the home, we're secure in our surroundings even more so than if we were in a restaurant. We are accustomed to what's in our home. And for the most part, we feel safe. Whatever's on the floor or furniture that's in place, we get used to it. So it couldn't possibly be a hazard, right? Not always the case. We still must identify the hazards that surround us, and not only once. As our situations change, we have to identify the hazards that are around us. So let's say, for example, you're having foot surgery. That changes the way you get around, doesn't it? Before surgery, what should you do? Look at and plan your path of travel in the multiple areas within the home that you have to move to. However that movement is going to be, whether it's going to be with assistance or someone else is going to get it for you, or maybe you might have to go do it. Same thing as we age, or if we're involved in an accident and our mobility changes. We have to make some changes to our environment to suit us in a way that makes it safe for us to continue doing what we have always done, but by eliminating the hazards around us. So what about getting our day started? Very first thing we need to do is get out of bed. What's involved in getting out of bed? At some point today, sit at the edge of your bed on the side that you get on, out of. Look carefully at the floor near you and along the different paths of travel. To the bathroom, to the closet, to the dresser, to any other area you utilize in your bedroom. What could potentially cause you to slip or cause you to fall? What about area rugs at the foot of the bed or on either side of the bed? We don't want to get out of bed and put our nice warm feet on a really cold floor. That really wakes us up though, doesn't it? And we happen to do the my feet are cold dance. Even if we have carpeting in our home, we like to use area rugs to protect our carpet or to add a nice accent to the space. If you look at the picture in this slide, how many opportunities for tripping on that rug are there? Along any side that's not held down in place by an object. While double-sided tape specific for area rugs can most certainly help, the issue is there is still a lip on the outer edge of the rug. Depending on how we walk, if we stop to speak to someone or forget that the rug is present, or even where we are in the space, our feet could catch on the edges of the rug. And that's just, and that's not including if you have mobility issues. That certainly changes the way that we step, even how high we raise our feet, whether it's from a foot surgery or a knee surgery or hip surgery, or just a medical condition. It's a good idea to keep area rugs out of the path of travel. Replace rugs that are fraying, that can catch your footing, and fix corners that are curling up. And those curled corners, how many times have you walked across a rug that has a curled edge and you catch your foot on it and you almost fall? And then what do? We fold it back over, we hold it, or maybe I'm the only one that does it, and then it goes flat again. And even when we have rugs that are protected on, protecting a hard floor surface to a carpeted room, there's a risk of bunching up and creating another trip hazard, isn't there? Because it's a big lump. Area rugs or runners that are on hard surfaces and have areas that are not secured down by a piece of furniture can slip if they're not secured down with an anti-slip pad underneath. And while many of us do have area rugs in our homes, if you're taking care of a loved one, it actually is a good idea to eliminate the rugs that could potentially cause a fall. And it's a good idea to also invest in proper shoes to wear around the house that are supportive and non-slip. Open back slippers can easily cause a fall in an individual that has any issues with mobility, again, due to medical conditions or even recent surgeries. Identifying hazards in our bathroom. Getting to your bathroom, shower, and closet. What's on the floor and in your way? What type of rugs do you have in your bathroom? Are they non-skid bottoms? So when you get out of the shower, how many rugs do you have in there? Do you have rugs that are around the toilet? Do you have rugs in front of the sink? Do you strictly use towels on the floor when you step out of the shower? Are you stepping out of a tub shower combo or a walk-in shower? What's the difference? Well, think about how you step. If you were to step into a walk-in shower, you're simply walking in. Maybe it's a small step down. But when you're stepping into a tub, that changes the whole dynamic of that step, because you're also not just walking straight and not lifting your leg up very high, but now one of your legs has to get up and over the tub and go down, which means that the leg that's left on the bathroom floor is in a different position. It's actually almost in a push-out position. So if you are using a towel or a rug that doesn't have a skid pad underneath, or has just a backing that makes it sticky to the floor, you can really slip out from underneath you and really hurt yourself just by getting into the shower. And what about getting to and from the living room? What's on the floor and in your way? What kind of rugs are you using? Are they also non-skid bottoms? How many rugs do you have? Same thing, just like the bathroom. What's on the floor that could be put somewhere else that is not only out of the way, but will also reduce the risk of tripping over it? And also, what's on furniture that could potentially be knocked off and cause a trip hazard? So these are the things that as you go room to room, and I actually have a checklist, a safety checklist that I can give you access to, which is really cool and very helpful, and that'll be later in here. But as you're going through the rooms, you'll be able to see, what are we looking at? What's on the floor? Don't look at your house as a whole. Go room to room to room and really look at the path of travel. What could possibly happen? What about the kitchen? How many spills happen in the kitchen? What's on the floor and in your way? What about rugs in the kitchen? Do you have just non-skid rugs, or do you have the rugs that are woven and they don't have any backing at all, that look really pretty? What about anti-fatigue mats? I love anti-fatigue mats, but I also hate them at the same time. I love them because, if I cook, I'm really cooking. I'm in the kitchen for most of the day. They're great. My hips don't hurt, my knees don't hurt, back doesn't hurt, and I feel like my meal comes out a lot better because I'm a lot happier. But if you've ever walked through there, kind of shuffled because you're carrying something heavy, like maybe a 3-gallon pot of water, you can also catch your footing on those anti-fatigue mats, which is why I also hate them. And you could potentially hurt yourself, or even just lose whatever you've been cooking. Debris, as I mentioned earlier, is one of the main reasons that we slip and fall. In the kitchen, we have a potential for more spills and debris. So make sure that not only are you cleaning up as you go, but that you're cleaning up after you're done cooking, that you're cleaning up at the end of the day. Because just one little thing on a hard surface floor can really surprisingly cause you to slip. And what about other obstacles in our home? If you happen to have a cute little kitty cat, it's just so adorable, but in the middle of the night, that cat does zoomies, or a dog that loves to make area rugs a little lumpier, and like your cat might bunch it up because it's bearing a toy underneath it, or something more horrifying, like something that used to be alive, and you wake up in the morning and there's this mess that's next to the bed. It's uneven. It creates another tripping hazard. And sometimes if your animal likes to hide under there, you could also potentially hurt them as well. It's just those little things to think about. And sometimes I think we don't even really think about it that much, again, because we see it every single day and we put it there. So what can you do? Donate some old items that you no longer used to reduce clutter. Install bed rails in your bedroom to avoid falls and add extra support for getting in and out of bed if you are someone that has mobility issues, or even if you're recovering from surgery. It's amazing what those things can do. And install night lights for visibility at night, especially if they are the outlet night lights that point at the floor. Those give off an amazing amount of light. And in your bathrooms, install grab bars around the toilet in the shower. Set a bench in the shower for seniors who find it difficult to stand for long periods of time. Also put an anti-slip mat in the shower, or you can also have a coating put in the shower to prevent slipping as well, to make it more grippy. And adjust water heater thermostat to prevent burns. I would recommend no more than 120 degrees Fahrenheit. What else can you do? What about the living room? Install remote controlled lighting for seniors with low mobility. Adjust seating height to make sitting down and standing up a lot easier. Remove rugs and clutter from walkways to eliminate trip hazards. And also in areas of where there might be long hallways, you can also install grab bars there so they have some place to hold on to if they need to. In your kitchen, install pull-down shelves for items that are stored higher for an easier reach. I'm already pretty short and I can't reach stuff on the top shelf. So that's pretty much where I put stuff that I don't ever need to get, except maybe once in a while when I need to grab my, my step stool. Leave heavy items in an easy to access area so they don't need to be moved often. Ensure that there's an automatic shut off on the stove and oven to avoid either of those being left on. And in regards to resources, there's some great resources out there. CDC's study program, which is their Stopping Elderly Accidents, Deaths, and Injuries, and their Still Going Strong program. They have a lot of resources. If you can take a screenshot of this or print your screen, I'll leave it up here for just a second so you can do so. There's a lot of resources on here. Now, the study program is primarily, when I was doing some research on this to see what the CDC had, I noticed that a lot of this is for healthcare providers. Doesn't mean that we can't have access to the materials that are there. And there's a lot of really good tips on there. There's also some really interesting questions to ask your physician, especially if you're afraid of falling, especially if maybe you've suffered a fall, or even if things that even your caregiver can ask. And then there's also, if you are a caregiver to a family member or even to a family friend, there's some resources on the study site that are specifically for caregivers. And the Still Going Strong program has a lot of really good resources on mobility, how to maintain mobility, how to increase strength in your legs, and so forth. So some really good things there. Now, some of the other resources that I particularly liked on learning how to prevent a fall were the Stay Independent, and this is on these sites, what you can do to prevent falls, check for safety, and I'm going to show you the check for safety checklist, which is one of my favorites. And are your medicines increasing your risk of a fall or a car crash? As we get older, it seems that our medication list seems to increase. So Does our physician know what we're on based from the other physicians that we might see, whether it's our dermatologist or whatever? What are the interactions of those medications? Those dosages that they're giving you, what are the potentials of you losing your balance or becoming dizzy? Or really, if you're going to take this at night, because if you're going to drive during the day, I don't recommend you're on this. There's also a My Mobility planning tool. Keeping on your feet. Simple exercises that you can do at home, like a chair rise exercise. There's postural hypotension, which is also a really good PDF that is available with a lot of really good information, and physical activities for arthritis. So this right here, I love this checklist. This checklist here is how you can go from room to room to room and look at the most common hazards that are in the home and what you can do to fix them. So for example, on your floors, when you walk through the home, do you have to walk around furniture to get to wherever it is that you need to get to? The answer is yes. You can always ask someone to move the furniture so the path is clear. And sometimes I don't think about that. There's an armchair right there, and it's there because it's pointed at the TV. So when I leave the kitchen, I can then go sit in the armchair. Okay, but let's see if we can maybe put it in another place, so that way it's easier for you to get to without having to walk so many steps to get to it, especially if you are having mobility issues and it might be easier for you to reach it. Do you have throw rugs on the floor? Yeah, I know we covered a lot about throw rugs, but remove the rugs or use double-sided tape and non-slip backing so the rugs won't slip. So those are the things that give you really good tips or things that you can do to eliminate them. So this is on this checklist here for Check for Safety. That's the checklist that I'm talking about. So making your home safer, how do we do that? And I know that I'm harping on the throw rugs, and I'm sorry if you're a throw rug lover, but throw rugs keep floors free of debris and clutter. Add extra lighting or brighter light bulbs to areas in and around your home that are poorly lit. Install grab bars, as we mentioned earlier, in your bathrooms next to toilets and inside the shower and bathtub. And also, it wouldn't be a bad idea to install grab bars in long hallways or even in the hallway in general. Install additional handrails at any staircase that you might have, even if it's not a traditional staircase, even if it's just a step going down into the backyard, or a step getting from the garage into the house, or even 2 steps to getting from the garage to the house. If solid floors are currently in the home and are not textured but slick, use shoes that are supportive, that have a sole that has traction. Flip-flops, again, for most of them are not made to be grippy and are not made to be that supportive. There are a few out there, but in general, I know Arizona, we love our flip-flops. But definitely make sure you have home shoes that when you're walking around slippery floors, or you know you're going to be somewhere that's slick, that you've got a good sole and good support. And staying up to date, talk to your doctor. Mention to them if you have fallen recently. Mention to them if you're worried that you could fall or even could fall again. Mention to them if you don't feel steady when you're walking or even when you're standing. Do you lose your balance frequently? These are things that you have to talk to your doctor about. Make sure that your doctor and your pharmacist are looking at all your medications. Could any of them, as I mentioned before, could any of them make you dizzy or sleepy, or even either by themselves, or especially in combination? Because this could also be at a risk for a fall or even a car crash. Keep your eyes in check. Visit your ophthalmologist. Healthy feet and proper footwear. Get your feet checked. Make sure that you're not losing any nerve function. Know your fall risk due to any current or new health conditions. So if you're diagnosed with anything, ask, what could this do to my mobility? Also, exercise. One of the things that you see on the CDC websites is they support Tai Chi. They recommend Tai Chi for strengthening legs and improving balance. And still going strong, the website also offers other exercises to help you with balance and strength. So it's a really good resource. And some of your local resources.
Yep, we have Area Agency on Aging and they do a lot of, they're a great resource for any general questions that you might have. And over the last year, they did have a grant that would cover expenses for a fall detect device for Maricopa residents that are aged 6 plus. So if you're interested, reach out to them. That's under their emergency alert device program. They had 2 different types of devices, and that was available. We've had residents who have requested that, and they've received it. The program that we have locally here in Paradise Valley is called You Are Not Alone. In this program, it helps save lives and helps individuals with limited mobility. They might have a disability or other circumstance where they would benefit from having somebody check on their daily welfare. And so the idea behind Yana is that they are able to feel confident while still continuing to live on their own. And in that program, they get a daily wellness call. They push 1 if they're okay, or they push 3 if they need help. If they don't answer, the system calls them back a few times. They still don't answer. We have an officer go out there to check on them to make sure that they're okay. Since we've had the program, we've had 2 successful saves. And in those incidences, we had individuals who ended up falling. And so it can happen to anybody. And so these are just resources that are available here and locally. Yana is also available in other cities as well now. So if you have a loved one who lives in another municipality, reach out there and see if they have a similar program or if they have any local resources there that could help too. We did receive 1 question, and that question was in reference, how do we get this information to somebody maybe we care about? And after this session, I will have this recording uploaded onto our YouTube, and I'll send a link to everybody who's enrolled. And then I'll also send some hyperlinks to some of the resources that were mentioned during the presentation. And for those who are watching the this webinar via our YouTube channel, if you look in the description below, you'll find some of the links to what was discussed today.
And as always, if you also have any other questions, feel free to reach out to me directly. My email is there, and also, of course, reach out to Paradise Valley Police Department. I also have links to all of the information, and I'm actually going to leave some of these up here for you to look at. So if you go to the CDC study and CDC Still Going Strong program, again, go ahead and take a screenshot of that slide if you can. And then there's an area where you can look at, you can actually search for these things. So if you want to take a screenshot of those resources as well, I recommend that you go ahead and do that just so you have it available. And we're also happy to send those out. I did save the PDFs just to make it a little easier. Were there any other questions?
Carly, we're always glad that you take the opportunity. I know it's early in the morning and it probably gets you out of bed a whole lot earlier. So we're always appreciative of you joining us for Coffee with a Cop. You're a great presenter, and you always have timely and relevant topics for our community in Paradise Valley. So thank you for joining us today.
Oh, no, thank you. And not a problem. I'm in construction. I'm up early.
Yeah, that's right.
So
I'm going to take a moment and introduce our council members. Mayor Jerry Bian Wilner is here today, and I'll allow him to say a few words, and then I'll follow it up with council members Pace and Thomason.
Well, thank you, Chief. What a great presentation. These are always so informative. I want to thank the police department for working hard to get great content, and our content provider. I learned a lot. I thought I was just klutzy in sandals and flip-flops, but now I know it's a bigger issue. And I don't mean to make light of it because these are serious issues, but I do interact with a lot of people in their senior years, and I'll take this information and use it. So I just wanted to thank you for doing this, and it's a pleasure to have you here and a pleasure to have you speaking with us. Keep up the great work. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Pace.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you, Carly. I share your passion for safety. I'm an OSHA lawyer by trade, so I've dealt with, sadly, 272 fatalities at work throughout the country. So it happens in construction, but it does happen in the homes. And I think we do a lot more education to our construction and landscape teams than we ever do in the home. So this was like a perfect presentation. I'd never seen this done before, even in all my ASSE classes. And so this is a great resource, as our mayor said, that we will send to as soon as it's available. Steve McGee makes it available. I'm sending it to my mother and all her friends. We don't want anyone to fall. So that's good. And I think your caution about flip-flops is so relevant. I'm always lecturing my husband and everyone I see in flip-flops, both for rattlesnakes, because that's the big, it causes stress to a snake, a rattlesnake, and they'll bite you as they go by because it flips down twice. Instead of wearing shoes where you can just pass by, but it is very unsafe on floors, on ladders and so on. And it's so true that people use the wrong ladders. I'm always telling people, get a real OSHA 6-foot ladder, get it out of the closet, use that to get up on your shelves. Do not use those cheap little ones you buy at the store. So good reminder, great presentation, Carly, and really good PowerPoints and resources. And a thanks to our town for being so proactive on this, and our chief and our police department. And because we do have the YANA program, and I think a good advice from Steve McGee on the agency on aging to get that device. So thank you, Chief. Thank you, Carly, and great that you're making it a safe day in our homes. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Thomason.
Thank you, Chief. Carly, always a delight to see you. If we could make you an honorary Paradise Valley resident or an honorary Paradise Valley staff member, I would be first in line to make that happen.
Oh.
Your passion for safety, both in the car, in the home, and out in the world, is really a gift to our whole community. So thank you. And
Thank you.
Chief, thank you. You have taken keeping us safe to a new level, including safe in our home from slip and falls. So thanks to you and the department.
Thank you. I also see our town manager out there today, Jill Kymack. Thanks for joining us today. Hey, just a reminder, today is the first day of school. So speaking of safety, please, as you're traveling near our schools, which are geographically diverse in Paradise Valley, spread out all over the place, keep your foot out of the accelerator a little bit and get your foot hovered over the brake pedal. There's 2 pedals down there at the bottom of the car. Hit the one on the left. So just remember that the kids are out. Be very mindful of that, especially until they get into their routines as to where they should be crossing. So please, slow down around the schools and be patient especially near the bigger schools. They're changing traffic patterns again this year, so it'll be a learning process. So please slow down and watch for kids. Do you have anything else?
No, I'm good. Thank you again, as always. It's been a pleasure, and I love putting these together. And I had some help from the Ketchell team, which has just been awesome. So it was really fun to do this. Thank you.
Thank you. You guys have a great Wednesday morning, and get your second cup of coffee and enjoy your day. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everybody.
everybody.
Have a great day.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.